Not everyone who sets foot in WWE is welcomed back. Some leave quietly, others are fired in disgrace, and there are names that WWE would rather pretend never existed. Even those once seen as the future of the company have burned bridges so badly that a reunion is no longer an option. In today's video, Wrestling Sphere takes a look at wrestlers who once held golden opportunities, only to throw them all away. Let's get started. Eva Marie, a never-ending disappointment. Eva Marie was once seen as WWE's next beauty icon when she debuted in 2013, instantly recognizable thanks to her bright red hair and striking appearance. WWE heavily invested in her image, gave her media exposure, and even paired her on screen with veterans like Natalya to help her grow and develop. But over time, her lack of progress became inexcusable. Despite receiving formal training at WWE's Performance Center and gaining in-ring experience at NXT, where many of today's top stars hone their craft, Eva never showed any real improvement. Her performances remained awkward, with poor timing and weak coordination with opponents. To many fans, her matches felt like a test of patience. Surprisingly, WWE still gave her another shot in 2021, during the COVID era. This time, she returned with a bold new character, Eva Marie, all red everything, but still lacked the most important element, in-ring ability. Her matches continued to fall flat, fan reactions remained negative, and WWE quickly chose to cut ties again. Since leaving, Eva has often hinted at a return through social media posts. But WWE has stayed completely silent. No plans, no storyline, and clearly, no interest. For WWE, the chapter with Eva Marie appears permanently closed, a story that began with glitz and promise but ended in lingering disappointment. Mr. Kennedy, from rising star to forgotten memory. In 2009, Mr. Kennedy, once seen as one of WWE's brightest prospects, was suddenly released without any official explanation. The widely rumored reason was a botched suplex during a match with Randy Orton on Raw, where Orton landed awkwardly on his head. That incident sparked concerns about Kennedy's safety in the ring, but it also stirred up talk of backstage politics. Some believe that both Randy Orton and John Cena used their influence to push for Kennedy's release instead of giving him a chance to make things right. This was the same Kennedy who once held the Money in the Bank briefcase and had been pegged as a future world champion. WWE clearly saw potential in him, at least at first. After leaving WWE, Kennedy reinvented himself in TNA as Mr. Anderson, proving he wasn't without talent. He won the world title multiple times, got involved in compelling storylines, and earned fan support. Yet even with his success in TNA, WWE never seemed interested in bringing him back. Even as late as 2025, in an interview with Chris Van Vliet, Kennedy openly expressed a desire to return to WWE. But by then, it was too late. WWE showed no signs of interest. No offer, no talks, nothing. Instead of a triumphant comeback, Mr. Kennedy remains a forgotten regret, someone WWE has no desire to revisit. Jack Swagger, a champion no one remembers. Jack Swagger was once given the biggest opportunity of his career when he won the World Heavyweight Championship in 2010. But instead of rising to become a top-tier star, Swagger's career quickly lost momentum. His performances lacked spark, his mic skills were underwhelming, and his bland personality failed to connect with fans. Although he showed some improvement later on when paired with Zeb Coulter in the role of an extreme patriot, time proved that Swagger simply couldn't maintain a top spot on the card. Eventually, he left WWE and sought new opportunities in AEW under his real name, Jake Hager. There, he was marketed as a legitimate MMA fighter, but the results never lived up to the hype. Despite support from the Inner Circle faction, Hager was often overshadowed by bigger names and never truly stood out. When Jake Hager left AEW, rumors swirled that he might re-sign with WWE. His former ally Zeb Coulter even publicly expressed hope that Swagger would return. But WWE showed no real interest. The reason was clear. Despite once being a world champion, Swagger is widely regarded by fans as one of the least memorable champions in recent WWE history. To make matters worse, his lackluster performances in recent years have caused most fans to lose any real interest in his potential return. WWE now has a roster filled with younger, more talented, and more charismatic stars, making Jack Swagger's comeback seem virtually impossible. Enzo Amore, loads of talent, even more trouble. Enzo Amore was once one of WWE's most entertaining personalities in the modern era. With his fast-talking, witty, and wildly creative promos, he had the rare ability to ignite a crowd with just a few lines. His partnership with Big Cass quickly won over fans, propelling the duo from NXT to Raw as a breakout act. But despite having all the tools to be a major star, Enzo's controversial behavior, both in and out of the ring, ultimately led to his downfall. In 2018, Enzo was abruptly fired from WWE while still holding the Cruiserweight Championship. Initially, WWE gave no official reason, but things soon became clear. They wanted to cut ties completely. Part of it had to do with sensitive allegations at the time, but more importantly, it was about his attitude and unprofessional behavior backstage. Enzo had a reputation for causing friction in the locker room. One story even claims that Roman Reigns, considered a locker room leader, once kicked Enzo off the tour bus for being disrespectful and disruptive. Many wrestlers no longer wanted to work with him, and for WWE, maintaining a positive backstage environment has always been a top priority. Triple H once plainly stated in an interview that WWE had no interest in bringing Enzo back. And with many of his former critics still working for the company, a return seems highly unlikely. Though Enzo continues to wrestle on the independent circuit and still talks about a WWE comeback, his damaged reputation and long history of controversy have likely closed that door for good. Velvetine Dream. From NXT sensation to persona non grata. Velvetine Dream was once one of the most promising young stars in NXT. With a bold persona, flamboyant presentation, and a natural connection with the audience, Dream quickly became a symbol of WWE's creative potential. Fans even fantasized about a future WrestleMania showdown between him and John Cena, something that once felt entirely possible. But everything soon fell apart beyond repair. His career spiraled after he became entangled in serious controversies, including allegations of sexual misconduct that surfaced during the #SpeakingOut movement. Although Dream denied the accusations, the overwhelming backlash from fans and WWE's prolonged silence made it clear the company wanted nothing more to do with him. Things only got worse after WWE released him. Dream, under his real name Patrick Clark, ran into multiple legal issues, arrests for assault, trespassing, and drug paraphernalia possession. These incidents not only destroyed his public image but also confirmed why WWE could never associate with him again. More recently, Dream publicly demanded an apology from WWE, an act that only further alienated him from the wrestling community. With a tarnished reputation and ongoing personal problems, any chance of Velvetine Dream returning to WWE is virtually non-existent. Once hailed as a creative prodigy, he now stands as a cautionary tale of how behavior outside the ring can derail even the brightest future. Matt Riddle, tremendous talent, endless controversy. Matt Riddle was once considered one of the most exciting stars on WWE's main roster. With a solid MMA background, impressive in-ring skills, and a laid-back, rebellious attitude, he quickly won over fans. His partnership with Randy Orton as part of RK Bro became one of WWE's most beloved tag teams in recent years. But behind the curtain, Riddle's constant controversies became impossible to ignore. His release from WWE was reportedly due to two main factors: his questionable personal conduct and the company's post-pandemic budget cuts. From past allegations to backstage behavior, Riddle was increasingly seen as a liability to the company's public image. Even though he was prominently featured on TV, WWE's patience eventually wore thin. Since his departure, Riddle hasn't hidden his desire to return. In an interview with Developmentally Speaking, he openly stated that he's always ready if WWE calls. But that call seems a long way off. Despite his undeniable talent, WWE management is believed to remain firm in their stance. They don't want to bring back someone who comes with so much baggage. In the wrestling world, people often say never, but for Matt Riddle, at least for now, the door appears firmly shut, not because of a lack of ability, but because of a past that continues to cast a shadow. Zack Ryder, from inspiration to afterthought. Zack Ryder was WWE's first true social media phenomenon. When he wasn't getting much TV time, Ryder took matters into his own hands by launching a personal YouTube channel that drew hundreds of thousands of viewers, catapulting his name into the spotlight. His persistence eventually paid off. At WrestleMania 32, Ryder won the Intercontinental Championship in a moment that brought the entire arena to its feet. Sadly, that would also be the peak of his WWE career. After being released in 2020 during a wave of roster cuts, Ryder, under his real name, Matt Cardona, started over on the independent circuit. But he didn't just wrestle. He reinvented himself, rebuilt his brand, and captured titles across GCW, Impact Wrestling, and other promotions. Cardona called himself the King of the Indies. And it wasn't just hype. Given his success, many believed WWE would take notice of a more refined, battle-tested Ryder. But the call from Stamford never came. In fact, it was Ryder who reached out himself to see if a return might be possible. What makes the situation puzzling is that Ryder was never problematic. He avoided controversy, was well-liked backstage, and his wife, Chelsea Green, is still actively competing in WWE. With all the stars aligned, the lack of an invitation back is hard to explain. Perhaps, to WWE, Ryder represents a chapter they've chosen to leave behind, even if the fans still remember the passion and value he once brought to the company. Ryback, the more he talks, the further he drifts. Since parting ways with WWE in 2016, Ryback has become something of a human loudspeaker, with no off switch. Once touted as the next Goldberg, Ryback quickly tanked his reputation through non-stop rants and needless online feuds. Not only did he alienate fans, but he gave WWE every reason to cut all ties for good. Instead of honing his craft or rebuilding his career, Ryback focused on attacking his former employer and top names like Vince McMahon and Triple H. What made things worse was his complete lack of self-awareness. He even seemed obsessed with the idea of returning to WWE, at times acting as if he had the upper hand in negotiations. At one point, Ryback released a video laying out his own conditions for coming back, as though the ball were in his court. In 2023, he ran a Twitter poll asking fans where he should return. The top choice: retire. Rather than accept the result, Ryback claimed the poll had been sabotaged by trolls and launched a new one, this time urging fans not to pick retire as a joke. But it backfired even worse. Nearly 66% still voted for retirement. At this point, Ryback, hoping that megastars like The Rock might help get him back into WWE, feels like fantasy. He's become the textbook case of someone whose ego and self-delusion derailed their own career. And with everything that's happened, there's simply no reason for WWE to ever look back, especially not in the direction Ryback is shouting from. Dean Ambrose. A door that no longer needs to be reopened. Dean Ambrose was once an essential part of WWE, most notably as a founding member of the legendary faction The Shield. But after years of frustration with rigid management, uninspired scripts, and overly controlled creativity, Ambrose made the decisive choice to leave WWE in 2019, quietly but firmly. Not long after, he debuted in AEW under a new name, Jon Moxley, and was immediately welcomed as a liberated star, finally free from creative shackles. In AEW, Moxley underwent a complete rebirth. He became world champion, headlined major events, and slowly solidified his place as a symbol of a new generation, one not bound by outdated formulas. Moxley not only rediscovered himself but carved out a career that stood in stark contrast to the watered-down version of Dean Ambrose fans had seen in WWE. As for WWE, even though the company has gone through significant changes during the TKO era, there's been no indication that they're looking to bring Moxley back. Some key figures behind the scenes likely haven't forgotten the harsh criticisms Ambrose publicly voiced after his departure, regarding everything from WWE's working conditions to what he called ridiculous creative demands. At this point, the chances of Moxley returning to WWE are close to zero. If it ever happens, it would likely be under one condition: to be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame, perhaps alongside his former Shield brothers, Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns. But that's a conversation for many years down the road. For now, Dean Ambrose, or rather, Jon Moxley, has chosen a new path, with no reason to look back. Brock Lesnar, a massive name with an uncertain future. For over 2 decades, Brock Lesnar has been one of the most dominant and marketable figures in WWE history. But in early 2024, the image of the Beast Incarnate suddenly went dark after his name surfaced in the high-profile lawsuit filed by Janelle Grant. Immediately, all creative plans involving Lesnar were scrapped. WWE couldn't continue featuring such a prominent figure while the legal situation remained unresolved. What's telling is that, although WWE hasn't officially severed ties with Lesnar, every signal from the company points to an extremely slim chance of a return. The most recent update came in April 2025, when Fightful Select reported that no talks had taken place between Lesnar and WWE since WrestleMania 40. The last public statement about him didn't come from legal representatives or WWE spokespeople, it came from Triple H. In a post-WrestleMania 40 interview, he simply said, "Lesnar is at home, just being Brock." No mention of the lawsuit. No hint at a comeback. Just a vague comment that matched Lesnar's current limbo. Each month, rumors about Lesnar's return continue to circulate. But month after month, they remain just that, rumors. No plans. No teasers. No signs he'll step through the smoke again. And the longer it goes, the less likely a comeback becomes. If his final match was against Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam 2023, it would be a quiet end to the career of a man who once defined an entire era of WWE dominance. Lars Sullivan, the fall of a manufactured monster. Lars Sullivan was once seen as WWE's next monster, a fearsome brute molded to dominate the PG era like a living nightmare. From his early days in NXT, Lars stood out with his aggressive style and sheer power. When he was promoted to the main roster in 2019, WWE pushed him heavily. Regular appearances, wins over established names, and a clear path toward being a top-tier villain. But everything unraveled, not because of in-ring failure, but due to a scandalous past coming back to haunt him. Old social media posts resurfaced, revealing racist, sexist, and anti-LGBTQ+ comments. Most damaging of all were offensive remarks directed at Stephanie McMahon, a top executive in the company. WWE couldn't turn a blind eye. They fined him $100,000 and demanded a public apology. But the damage was done. Just as he attempted to salvage his image, another bombshell dropped. It was revealed that Lars had previously worked in adult films, a detail never disclosed to WWE. Given the company's family-friendly image, this was unacceptable. Before the controversy died down, Lars suffered a serious knee injury, sidelining him for nearly a year. Although he returned briefly in late 2020, the comeback was forgettable. Awkward promo segments only made things worse. WWE quietly gave up and released him in early 2021. From a carefully crafted monster to a complete bust, Lars Sullivan became a cautionary tale, not because of lack of talent, but because of personal choices that left WWE with no reason to keep him around. Since then, his name hasn't been mentioned once. Teddy Hart, a lost talent drowned in chaos. If anyone ever stepped out of a legendary wrestling family with all the tools to be a superstar and still managed to destroy their own career, it was Teddy Hart. A direct nephew of Bret and Owen Hart, two of WWE's most revered icons, Teddy had wrestling royalty in his blood and was highly regarded from the very beginning. When he signed with WWE in 1998 at just 18, he became one of the youngest stars in company history. However, talent couldn't make up for his lack of discipline. Instead of progressing, Teddy constantly disappointed with his reckless behavior, refusal to follow direction, and a tendency to act on impulse. Even being a Hart couldn't save him, as professionalism has always been a top WWE priority. He was released after just 1 year, beginning a long downward spiral. Teddy went on to compete in independent promotions like Ring of Honor and MLW, where he could have rebuilt his reputation. But rather than shine through skill, he became known for backstage altercations with names like CM Punk, Kurt Angle, and Samoa Joe. Shockingly, WWE gave him a second chance in 2007, signing him to FCW as part of a new Hart Foundation. But history repeated itself. He was fired again for the same issues that had plagued him all along. Since then, WWE has completely distanced itself. Teddy's name became associated with multiple criminal charges, ranging from assault and drug possession to fleeing from law enforcement. Once standing on the doorstep of greatness, Teddy chose the path of self-destruction. Today, he's not just forgotten, he's considered the biggest disappointment ever to come from the Hart family. Alberto Del Rio, a faded star brought down by poor choices. Alberto Del Rio was once considered a crown jewel in WWE's global expansion plan. With his polished appearance, aristocratic demeanor, and solid martial arts background, he quickly stood out as Mexico's elite. a unique and striking character during WWE's transitional era. His 2011 Royal Rumble win, the Money in the Bank briefcase, and 2 World Championships were clear signs of the high hopes WWE had for him in those early years. But behind the expensive suits and luxury cars was a hot-tempered, defiant personality that wasn't easy to manage. In 2014, Del Rio was abruptly fired after slapping a backstage employee who reportedly made a racist remark. While many fans sympathized with him, WWE responded with strict disciplinary action. Still, less than a year later, he was re-signed and made an immediate impact by defeating John Cena to win the United States Championship. Unfortunately, the comeback didn't last. Del Rio was placed in the League of Nations, a loosely formed faction that failed to make any real impact. His momentum faded, and the once prominent WWE aristocrat was slowly forgotten. Things only got messier when he went public with his relationship with fellow wrestler Paige, a dramatic and turbulent romance that brought multiple scandals and put WWE under intense media scrutiny. In 2016, after violating the company's wellness policy, Del Rio chose to terminate his contract. But the biggest shock came in 2020, when he was arrested on charges of kidnapping and assaulting his ex-girlfriend. Though the charges were eventually dropped, Del Rio's career was left in ruins. WWE made no public statement, a heavy silence that spoke volumes. The door had closed for good. From a Latin market hopeful to an outcast, Del Rio's story is a powerful reminder that no matter how talented you are, bad decisions can destroy everything. And those are the names WWE would most likely prefer to leave in the past. Which one left the biggest impression on you? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to support Wrestling Sphere.